You know how people say that communication is key and that you need to open up so that people can understand you? I feel like that is just barely scratching the surface, and I think the real challenge comes afterwards. It's whether you can hold yourself and accept yourself no matter what happens after opening up. So recently I was going through some tough times, and you know how it goes. Like when you're in a very heavy emotional phase, then the kind of negative self-talk and negative thoughts just kind of tend to pile up. I felt very alone, I felt very misunderstood, I felt like no one could possibly relate to what I was going through, right? But if you're anything like me, I'm also critical of my thoughts and I like to not take them as gospel. And I'm also trying to fix my situation. Like, I'm not just trying to feel bad for myself and feel sorry for myself and then I just stay in that, but I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to solve it. I'm trying to see how I can get out of that, right? And so I questioned that thought and I thought to myself, is this really true? Is that a fair conclusion that I drew? Or is that just something that I tell myself so I could withdraw further? And the truth was that I hadn't actually shared what I was going through at all. Like, I hadn't shared it with anyone, really. And so one day I decided to open up to this friend of mine that I've had for a very, very long time. In fact, we know each other from childhood. We've gone through a lot of different times, different challenges. We've seen each other in a lot of different stages in our lives. I decided to open up to her quite spontaneously, actually. I had thought about it, but I thought I was in too much of a vulnerable state to risk opening up. So I kind of just kept it to myself until the situation just got slightly lighter. Like, I wasn't fully out of it, but I felt like I had gained a little bit of distance just over time, naturally just processing my emotions. I decided, okay, let me just try and see. Let me just test this wonderful theory of mine that no one understands me and then I'm completely alone, right? So I shared some things with her. I still feel like I kind of filtered it quite a bit just because I didn't want to trauma dump, first of all. I didn't just want to, keep everything to myself for such a long time and then just blurt it all out. Like, it's can be a lot to take. That's just how I handle it, right? So I'm also, I think, quite a guarded person. So for me, that made sense to do it like that. And after I did already, like, it was like a longer conversation. It wasn't just like I put everything in a big ass text message and sent it to her. It was like a back and forth. And I could already kind of tell that she was trying. She was trying to understand and she was trying to react in a way that would help me. But to be honest, it wasn't helpful at all. It really wasn't. And it actually hurts me a little bit to say that because I feel like I'm almost taking friendship for granted when I do that. Because I think the attempt that people make to understand you is worth something. But I want to be truthful and it didn't help. She wasn't really responding to how I felt that much. She was more just like, okay, I feel like the next steps that you want to take to deal with this is just like a good idea. Like, I think, yeah, like, do that. Like, I think that's a good idea. And I think I just wanted someone to hold more the emotional weight of it because, as I said, I'm already a problem solver. Like, I already know what steps I can take. Like, I wasn't looking for confirmation whether that was a good idea or not, and I didn't phrase it as such. I just had told her about what I was going through and like what I was going to do next about it to try and see if that helps, and she was just kind of, and I'm aware that like so many factors play into this and like why another person might not always, of course, perfectly react based on this imaginary script that we have in our minds that we would like to play out like that. Like, it's just not happening, right? Because you're speaking to another person with their own perspectives, with their own situations going on. So of course life is not just this play that we build and other people are just actors and they will act however we want them to. But I don't even want to go too deep into like my friend's reaction because that's beside the point. My point that I'm trying to make is what happened afterwards. Because remember, I opened up to try and disprove these thoughts that I had about how no one could understand me, how I was alone, right? So the goal was to try and see that someone can understand me and through that feel less alone. And that didn't happen. There was like a moment of relief a little bit that I opened up because it was like almost like a personal challenge, right? Because there was an issue that I just wasn't sharing anything with anyone. So in that sense, it did make me feel like I did something good for myself, kind of, or I overcame something. But the result was just not what I was hoping for at all. And when I shared that, as I said earlier, I wasn't totally in the depths of all these thoughts anymore. So I had gained a bit of distance, so I could look at this conversation also with a bit of distance and not constantly jump into, well, actually she proved that I am alone, and she proved that she doesn't understand me, and if even like this close friend cannot understand me, then who possibly can? It was very easy to feel that, and that did come up right afterwards. But there was, interestingly enough, like way more doors opened afterwards, because it was almost like when you try to disprove your thoughts or your belief systems, you become like an investigator in your own life. And logically, this one conversation is obviously not representative of me as a human being in this vast world being alone. That cannot possibly be proof of that. I had this part of me that wanted to cling to that, to just withdraw again, because it was almost like you come out of your shell and you try, and that hurt. So the easiest thing is just to withdraw, tell yourself that you tried, and that actually didn't help at all. So you're just gonna continue on your journey by yourself in like solitary confinement within your own mind and heart, and then that's just it. Luckily, those feelings just like happened for like a moment. Like it was evening, so like the rest of the day I was just like, that's enough for today, right? But then afterwards, it was almost like me just attempting to disprove this belief system, these thoughts that I had, opened this door to so much more curiosity about, then how can I prove it? Or are there more ways to prove it other than this one conversation with this one friend that I had? This sense of curiosity saved my well-being in that time, because whether I failed or not wasn't the most important thing anymore. It was the fact that I could try and go into the world and find out. If I'm really honest, and this might sound bad, but I knew that this friend was not gonna give me what I needed in a way. But something in me just felt inclined to do so, just felt inclined to try. As I said, in a weird way, and I didn't even realize it at the time, it wasn't so much whether she understood me or not, it was opening the door to investigating your own thoughts and investigating your own stories that you tell yourself. And sometimes it's crazy how you can follow this hunch that you have, and even something logically or something in your mind telling you, I think the result is not going to be what you want it to be, and that ending up being the point. I'm going to try to paint this picture in a more visual way. So I'm here, I tell myself these stories about myself and how I feel because I'm just sad and I'm down, and I'm telling myself a whole bunch of stories around me feeling bad, right? And one of these thoughts is, you're alone, no one understands you, right? This is like one of the stories that I have over here. And so to disprove that, I think, okay, I'm gonna talk to this friend of mine, because my goal is for her to show me that I am not alone and that I am understood. So this goal is my motivator to move from here to here, right? Because I imagine that this is the thing that will help me. But this doesn't end up happening. It doesn't end up happening. But what it does do is like sending me on another path that acts again as a motivator, but that I probably wouldn't have seen or would have been interested in if I was still over here. So this was still crucial. This was a crucial part, even though the goal that I had in mind was not the one that ended up happening. This sense of curiosity and exploration, I really believe, is such a fuel for living. And I think what's so important about it and what's so helpful about it is that it puts you more into observer mode. You're not then identifying yourself anymore fully with these thoughts that you have about yourself, with these stories that you tell yourself, but rather you're observing them. It's something to explore, it's something to challenge yourself about. Do you see how like that there's then this little split that happens? Instead of like you being merged with these stories that you tell yourselves, you're a little more over here where you're observing and you're calm, you're just learning in a way. And then this is what happens, and you look at what happens. You don't fully identify, you just look and observe and learn. And that brings me to the next part, because once you shift into this more observer role, even though you're still on this path of exploration, right, of trying to still find ways and people that make you feel less alone and more understood, that's so natural, that's what you should do, I believe. But instead of this now becoming something that alienates you and like makes you feel dreadful and like it eats away your heart and soul, because you're in this observer role, you're distancing yourself, you, this observer, from all these other things that you're experiencing. They're part of you, but they're not all encompassing anymore. They don't consume you anymore. So you can actually like go about your path onto like being more understood and feeling less alone in a way more lighthearted way. So do you see how like paradoxically enough this started with you wanting approval from others or wanting to be understood by others, and that led you down a path of understanding yourself better and accepting yourself better. And then through that, it will become easier to find people that understand you and accept you. It's so interesting how sometimes we have a goal in mind that motivates us and sends us down the path and gives us a completely different result, but it still takes us exactly where we need to be. Opening up is the very, very, very first step, and it has its purpose, and if you feel inclined to do so, do it. But stay open towards what the result may tell you, even if the result is not someone fully understanding you, giving you the answers that you need, trusting that in a way it's still exactly what you need to continue. Try to be curious about the reaction, try to question and challenge whatever feelings or emotions and thoughts come up in that moment. Challenge that. Go on to be curious about what's happening within you and outside of you. And it's so interesting to me because even when I make videos like this, it's the same principle. It's so weird. Like, I think sometimes I'm gonna start a video talking about this and end up here, and even within that video it sends me down another path, and it still feels exactly like where I needed to take this. So yeah, I would really like to know what you think of this, if you can relate in any way, if you've ever been in that situation where you've shared something with someone and it didn't really work out the way you wanted to, but it still ended up kind of cascading into something that was exactly what you needed. So let me know. Speaking of community and wanting to be understood, you know that this is my goal here, is to hopefully build a community of people that understand each other and try to help each other out. I had one person recently reaching out for the first time to me on Instagram to tell me that they liked my videos and, you know, it has helped them and they resonated and related with what I was saying, and that genuinely like makes my heart so full. And I really do hope that these videos are in somewhat helpful to you. But yeah, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you very soon.